Hello everyone! Welcome to yet another day in the clown decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. A few weeks ago you may remember that I made a video about the new offspring of Extinction Rebellion, which is Just Stop Oil. And for a quick recap, they were generally being pain in the arses by sitting in the middle of roads near oil refineries, not letting massive truckloads of oil out. And it didn't matter to them what type of oil that was.
Yeah, but that's cooking oil.
And there was, of course, also the famous incident of the scraggy nerd who tried to get football fans on board. And like most environmental radicals these days, they only seem to be going worse and worse. And up until now it was relatively harmless stuff, at least to other people, such as gluing themselves to roads and gluing themselves to paintings in museums and art galleries. But of course, when the government doesn't do as they want, because at the moment we don't really have a functioning government because we're in the middle of picking a new prime minister, or I'm sorry, I should say the Tories are in the middle of picking a new leader, the government is really not doing too much at the moment. And the government, of course, has very little time for those who act like 2-year-olds when they don't get their own way. And what happens when you have a 2-year-old who doesn't get their own way and they throw a tantrum and still don't get their own way? They either run out of energy or they go even more bananas. And this is exactly what Just Stop Oil have done. Now, recent news is actually quite similar to what Extinction Rebellion were doing by trying to hammer open banks' glass fronts. However, Just Stop Oil's targets are a bit more direct than that. I mean, just look at this ridiculous get-up. This is someone in the middle of a midlife crisis. I mean, it's a very annoying thing, but these people probably do have kids, and they have probably been radicalised by ridiculous notions from The Guardian and other climate cultists into thinking that their kids are literally going to die of hypothermia when England becomes hotter than the sun thanks to global CO2 emissions. And so, because of that, she's come out looking like a lesbian snorkeler with the world's most pathetic mallet and chisel, because she's decided that she wants to vandalise an immigrant's property. And I'm honestly very surprised that the immigrant isn't doing much to fight back. He's just saying, "Excuse me, miss, you can't do that."
Excuse me! You can't do that. Call the police. You want to call the police? Call the police.
For those of you that missed that, he's saying you can't do that, and she's obviously not stopping, so she says to him, if you need to call the police, go do that. And this was an original idea from Extinction Rebellion. It's in their handbook, in fact, which I did a video on. And what the basic plan is to get so many people arrested for all this civil disobedience, although in this case it is literally just vandalism, and therefore is a crime, not just civil disobedience, that they want to clog up the prison system, and in the end it would just be easier for the government to go straight ahead and get to net zero within a year, rather than do what the government is there to do, which is to protect property rights and punish criminals who have no regard for property rights. Naturally, because of all this, they have now pushed forward the Police Crime and Sentencing Bill, which thankfully they have passed because it is just getting ridiculous and needs to get to a point where we can swiftly punish people who are out here to literally just commit crimes to sway the politics of the country. Do you know what it's called when you commit acts of violence on property or people to influence politics in some way? That's called terrorism. And this isn't even the end of the story yet. They do way worse things, but for now, we're sticking with the lesbian hammer and chiselers. Thankfully, the people committing these crimes were actually arrested. According to Talk TV, 51 people, in fact, were arrested for vandalising petrol stations across London. And this, of course, included the breaking of the glass, as we saw before, but also that they spray-painted some slogans on some other, well, as you can see there, damaged petrol pumps. And even from Just Stop Oil's own pictures and propaganda, they are still smashing that lesbian chiseler look. So, as usual for this channel, what I want for these criminals is for them to have the full hammer of the law come down upon them. I'm not read up on what maximum sentence is for vandalising property is, but whatever the maximum is, that is what they should be getting. And at this point, I think I know what you're thinking. Well, Haryan, you've covered this all before. We know that they're mental. What the hell is new? Well, do I have a special treat for you today, because I never thought things would get this mad with climate cultists. because typically they try and do the most low-level vandalising that you can think of. But in this case, they've done something that I think is actually really seriously bad. To the point that I'm pretty sure things like this were done in the Crusades. Their plan here is literally a plan from Saladin that was used against the French when they were held out in castles in the Crusades. What am I talking about here? Well, I'll let Just Stop Oil explain it.
Hi, I'm Joe, I'm 32 and I'm from Somerset. I'm a musician. Normally around this time of year I would be at a festival, jamming with my friends, dancing in the sun. But instead I'm lying in a tunnel underneath a road leading to the Navigator oil terminal.
Yes, I'm sure you've all worked it out. They are digging tunnels underneath roads with the intention that the road will collapse. When I say these were plans that Saladin used during the Crusades, I wasn't kidding, by the way. At the Siege of Jacob's Ford, one of the sieging tactics by Saladin was to send specialist miners to sap the walls by filling a tunnel underneath the wall with brush and setting fire to cause the roof to collapse, bringing the wall down with it. The tunnel was completed on the 4th day of the siege, but the fire failed due to the tunnel not being directly under the wall. With the fire out, the tunnel was extended and set afire again on the 5th day, causing a breach through which Saladin poured his men, killing 800 of the garrison and taking a further 700 captive, who he then executed. Now, obviously, this is a bit further than what Just Stop Oil are doing, but as you can see, this is clearly a warlike tactic. And again, because it has political aims and wants consequences in the political sphere, this is terrorism.
And I'm here because oil and gas is killing us and we need an emergency response from our government now. And you know what? There's nowhere I'd rather be.
Then be there, my dude. I'm being funny, but this guy's explained that, I'm a musician, usually I'll be out in a festival, but I want more meaning in my life. And the way he gets meaning is by feeling basically like a communist revolutionary. He wants to be Che Guevara. But instead, he looks like your typical festival goer, someone I'd be quite happy to punch in the face. Because, again, he's just been taken completely in by this ridiculous propaganda of the new doomsday. There's a reason that people call them climate cultists, and there's a reason I've been pushing that term for 3 years. Normal people would just go to a festival. This guy's literally doing a warlike tactic to get the government to get away from oil and gas because he thinks it'll save the planet, when in reality doing that quickly would get most of the population killed.
It is 1 minute to midnight on the doomsday clock. Those are the words of Boris Johnson in his COP address. Since then, the UK government has done nothing to address the climate emergency.
As you can see by this graph, source and description as always, our carbon dioxide emissions are going down. And in fact, according to this graph, we're actually on point to get net zero by 2050. Which I personally think is a ridiculous target to try and have. But hey, we're doing what the climate cultists want and it's still not good enough, surprise, surprise. And even if you look at our usage of fossil fuels, the big ones that cause the large amounts of emissions, which are coal, has gone down massively since the 70s. And with oil, yes, we are still about level, but as you can see recently, that is going down, along with gas, because renewables and nuclear are starting to fill the way. Not to sound too much like a broken record, I don't think renewables are the best way forward, but I do think they have a role to play. I think we're mainly going to have to rely on nuclear. Point being, the government has said things need to be done. The government is clearly doing things that they claim need to be done, and is in fact on track for what they claimed. I am not for these targets that they are setting, but they are doing their best to try and get to them. It is ridiculous to say that they aren't doing enough. This is everything that the climate cultists were saying needed to be done ages ago. Now apparently it's not enough, because it's always got to be the planet's going to die in 7 years, like AOC said. Next thing you know, they'll be saying 2 years. Won't be long before people have enough and completely forget about them for another decade, till it's cool and hip to care about the environment again.
Instead, it's pushing on with 40 plus new oil infrastructures.
And of course, they never actually mention that they are decommissioning old ones as well. They never mention that the reason that we are putting new oil and gas infrastructure in is to make it more efficient, have less emissions, and because the old ones are dirtier. So that's the ones we're getting rid of. But of course these people don't know that, because these people don't do the research. They just want to do things that make them feel good. They are pathetic revolutionaries. The reason for what they are doing is all window dressing. I make these videos to point out where they're wrong, but the real problem is just the fact that these people feel like they need more meaning in their life. Slap them in prison. When they're in there, they'll know what a meaningless life is.
It's up to us, the ordinary people, to take a stand and say we're not going to allow that to happen, but do extraordinary things to create a better future for ourselves.
Yeah, man, use a nice pick to dig out this. Well, I don't even know what you're digging out there. That is exactly what ordinary people do. What an absolute joke.
So we are here from the Just Stop Oil Coalition. We are currently blocking tankers on St Clement's Way. We have got a tunnel just going underneath this railway bridge. The reason we're stopping it is because it's putting people at risk if these vehicles come down.
So at the very least, they're trying to stop people from absolutely harming themselves. But if you don't want people harmed, don't do things that could harm them in the first place. This would be like me putting a bomb in Jeremy Corbyn's house and then saying to Jeremy Corbyn, whoa, don't go in your house, I'll put a bomb in there. And if he's then like, why have you done that? And I can say, well, you're too Marxist and I'll remove the bomb if you stop being Marxist. Yeah, I'd be done for terrorism. So the same thing should happen to these people. As I say, they've done a siege of Jacob's Ford. This is literally military tactics, ancient military tactics, but they're still military tactics. These people are terrorists.
On top of our people, we've been telling the police for days that they are in danger, and the police have chosen to keep this road open, endangering not just our lives, but also the tankers on this road.
It's such a ridiculous thing to say. Man, we called the police, we told them we're doing illegal stuff, but they just ignored us. Yeah, I'm not being funny, dude, but I wouldn't believe that you dug a tunnel. But then it turns out you did, and now you're saying, oh, we're doing the police's job of protecting people's lives. No, you're not. You are terrorising them. You absolute buffoon.
So, although they're upset, and I understand why they're upset, this is for their own well-being. The police and the council have refused to do a proper health and safety assessment. They have allowed heavy goods vehicles to go over them. That not only puts our people at risk, it puts heavy goods vehicle drivers at risk.
I love how he's blaming his actions on everyone else. This is completely externalising his own issues. I mean, my good friend at the Wellington Project, Jack, he always says that people's politics, especially on the left wing, basically come down to their personal issues and the fact they can't deal with them. This man himself has said that he's a musician, he'd usually be at festivals, he probably works a job he doesn't particularly like to keep his hobby going that he probably isn't particularly good at. He has a massive lack of meaning in his life, and then, due to that, as I said before, he's decided to become a terrorist for Just Stop Oil. And I don't use that word lightly. He is literally, he is saying everyone's in danger, like I'm in danger. Okay, so are suicide bombers. But amazingly, he can only say his vague endpoint of, oh, I don't want any new oil, or the government aren't doing enough, and then you show them all the stats of the ridiculous lengths the government are going to, and you just have to wonder why the Tories even bother with these people, because it's never going to be enough. And hopefully under Liz Truss, you'd notice that, but unfortunately she's still on for the 2050 net zero target. So what's going to happen in the future? Probably worse things, because this is the clown decade.
These are working class people, and the government is saying that the tax money that comes from oil is more important than risking a tanker driver's life. We're saying, fuck that shit. We are going to stop it, and we're going to make sure these tanker drivers are safe.
Again, back to the Corbyn thing. Oh, if I stop Corbyn going in his own house because I've put a bomb there, that makes me a good person. We have levers of power for a reason. You need to get there legitimately. Otherwise, you should be in jail for a very long time. I swear to God, if these people get out on activist judge grounds or by stupid juries, we really do have to question how our law and judicial system works. Because just like the people who tore down the Colston statue, they're getting away with it. Officials in museums, they're getting away with putting pictures of big, great heroes from British history, putting them in a back room somewhere. And now this, he has literally threatened people's lives and he doesn't even realise it. And he thinks that because he's stopping them from going over a tunnel he created, he's the good guy in this. It's the same with everyone else. They are doing destructive things and telling people to stay away from this destruction, and they think that that means that they have ended up as good people. Well, guess what, sunshine? You are a terrible piece of garbage who needs to rot in a jail cell for at least a year.
These heavy tankers going over is causing vibrations in the ground, causing bits of the tunnel to collapse and crumble. Once that continues to happen, it will collapse and could kill both the driver and the people below. And God forbid if one of the tankers went up. We're in a massive industrial estate. It would cause absolute havoc.
Christ, he's the type of person who thinks that shooting a red barrel in real life would make it explode. The amount of safety features on tankards to make sure that they don't go up is actually incredible. That's not going to happen. But again, he's blaming the police and the government for this. It's like, oh, the government and the police made me do this. I'm forced into doing this. No, you weren't. You said yourself you could have just been off at a festival not bothering anyone. But no, you had to do it, and guess what? No one's going to remember your name. Well, because you said your name at the start. I don't remember it, and I don't really care to. So please, just stop being a moron and trying to find a better way to vent your frustration at life. Because this ain't it, Chief.
There is a tunnel underneath the road, directly underneath the base layer of the tarmac.
Okay.
There is tarmac broken through on a large area right up until the wearing course.
Okay.
Which is the top course, which is generally about 25 millimetres, 1 inch thick.
Yeah.
That is the current situation.
Okay.
And and obviously the road is closed at the moment.
Yeah.
But the road needs to be assessed before it's reopened because it's not currently safe to open it.
I just love the copper's reaction to everything he's saying. Because he is, again, he's got the mind of a terrorist. He is doing all this, he thinks, for the greater good. He thinks he's a freedom fighter. He thinks he's saving future untold generations from, I don't know, a volcano going off in Wales or something. Because the way he's explained things at the moment, he clearly doesn't understand basic science. But clearly he's done his research on roads, so well done there. But imagine you're someone with a serious political motive, doing a serious act of terrorism, and then a cop just comes along, basically says, oi, 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 what's all this then? And you're saying, basically, I'm a terrorist, this road is going to collapse, people might die, and the cop's just going, okay. Not being funny, I'd be pretty mortified if that was the reply.
Their message is, at this minute, as it is at the minute, they're not confirming that they will not reopen the road, and it is up to you to take care of your own safety. So if you feel unsafe, you should come out.
The Silver Commander's coming back to you, but as it stands,
he's coming back to me at some point, but as it stands, there's no change. They can't confirm the road won't reopen, and if you feel unsafe, you should exit the hole. I will come back to you when I hear something.
Yeah, but it's not just our safety; it's the safety of the people.
Yeah.
On the road as well.
Uh-huh.
I mean, again, you have to ask, what do these people actually think's going to happen with a road size that big? It's like, oh, you know, we dug a tunnel, it can fit a person in, so, you know, it's about 3 foot wide, if that. And, you know, it's not big enough for the average tyre to fit down. From the looks of this picture anyway, I might be wrong. So if it does collapse and it does crush them, as this police officer's saying it's his own fault, and they're trying to say, oh, but what about the safety of others? Well, it'd just be another pothole in the middle of Britain. Honestly, we have millions. It's not that big a deal, and I don't think they realise it. But hey, if it does happen and they need to close the roads, what have they done? Annoyed people. What have they done to themselves? Probably got themselves a criminal record. Well done.
Yeah,
you showed me the rock, yeah.
Yeah, it's all the tarmac.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No. You're fair with me, I'll fair with you.
Cheers.
No worries.
I don't understand how you can be vandalising public property like that, such as a road, and not be arrested. He's literally saying to an officer, yes, I am committing an act that could put people at risk and in danger and vandalising public property at the same time. Why do you ask? And he's just like, well, stay in there if you want, but, you know, I'm not going to drag you out. Okay, but they're just going to continue digging the tunnel. Do something, man.
Oil is destroying our life support systems. Oil is the cause of the cost of living crisis. We need to transition to safe, clean, renewable energy now. We need to just stop new oil.
I would put good money on him having charged up that battery pack in the mains, which, again, you had to use quite a bit of fossil fuel to get the electricity out of there. So anyway, there's a whole boring conversation with one of the people and a police officer about how it all works, how the road opening and closing works, who's responsible for it and all that. And the police officer just doesn't care, he just wants them out of the tunnel so that they don't get killed. But obviously it's completely up to them. So after that whole ordeal, this is what one of the guys had to say.
At the moment, there are lorry drivers driving over the road, not knowing that there's nothing underneath supporting the tarmac. They have a duty of care to do proper investigation work before they reopen a road, and they fail to do that. They're basically putting the oil industry above people's welfare.
I love it. Everyone has a job to do. There are deadlines to make, quotas to fill, all that. And he's saying, oh, sod all that, I've dug a little tunnel under the road, and oh, why are they still driving over? They won't know about that. No, they definitely will know about that, because as the policeman said, he's informed everyone who needs to be informed, and these people will obviously inform the people driving over the road, especially the HGV vehicles, because from what I understand from what they've said here, it's an access road to an oil refinery. And the decision has been, oh, the tunnel's only about 3 feet wide, trucks have 18 wheels for a damn good reason, they'll be fine going over it. The people in the tunnel have been amply warned that if they do not feel safe, they should vacate the tunnel, lest they be killed. So if they die in there, it's completely on their hands. No one else is at fault. So yeah, I'm not particularly surprised they're not going to let two absolute morons get in the way of their massive operation to make sure that people's homes are heated. You silly mong. Anyway, this of course made it to national news because the idiots got arrested. 8 climate activists have been arrested and accused of putting lives at risk while disrupting traffic at one of the country's biggest oil terminals, including digging at least 2 tunnels under roads leading to the site. Essex police were called at about 8 PM on Sunday after the group was said to have obstructed the road as an oil tanker in Grays. According to Just Stop Oil, the organisation campaigning to end the use of fossil fuels in the UK, through direct action, 3 activists remained in one of the tunnels under St Clement's Way last night. It is said that one activist spent more than 4 hours on top of an oil tanker near Navigator Terminals on Sunday night, and that a second tunnel had been dug under Stonus Road nearby. Absolute maniacs. Police arrested campaigners on suspicion of offences, including going equipped to cause criminal damage. St Clement's Way was temporarily closed but reopened at 3 AM yesterday. Assistant Chief Constable Glenn Pavelin said the road at St Clement's Way remains partially open, and Thurrock Council's Highway Department are ensuring an overview of the road. We take the concerns of the particular protest group, its members and supporters seriously and are willing to work with you so that your rights to peaceful protest can take place without members breaking the law. Pavelin invited the protesters to start a conversation in order to find a balance that would allow activists to exercise their rights to protest effectively, while also doing so within the boundaries of the law. Why not just... Why are they always like this? Why is the Chief Constable saying that? No, tell them to come forward so that justice can be done to them. They know the ways that they can protest peacefully. They know it. They say so in their videos. They say that they are going to try and cause criminal damage to try and get arrested. They're not interested in protesting peacefully. Please stop trying to offer them a hand. They will not take it. And the article ends with the Just Stop Oil spokesman saying what we already know from the video. But this is the point we are at with Just Stop Oil. They disrupted games, to be fair, they didn't actually damage any artwork, but I think they'd be happy with sticking their hands directly on artwork, because they are constantly trying to get themselves arrested, and now they are literally partaking in terrorism. There's no other word for it. But they will continue to do as they have done today and probably do it in more radical ways. Their aim is not to get people killed. They don't want people killed because the original organiser and co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, who's still involved with these environmental groups behind the scenes, Roger Hallam, explains so himself. He says that you are more likely to have a successful political movement with civil disobedience if it results in no killings. Now, whether they result in deaths, that's a different story, because he says that deaths get headlines and draw attention, which is basically all he wants. And he said so himself, if he would block an ambulance and let the person in the ambulance die if he was protesting on the roads with Just Stop Oil. That's the type of people we're dealing with. Their leader is happy for people to die, just so long as it's not a direct murder. In short, these people are horrible. These people will continue to do what they do, they will only get more radical, and it will appear to be the exact type of people you expect to do this. Losers with absolutely nowhere else to go, and trying desperately to find even the slightest bit of meaning in their actions. I hope most of them find better things to do as soon as they can, because this stuff is just ridiculous. Unfortunately, it looks like October the 1st is going to be the day of judgment for whether people are going to do the sensible thing or not when it comes to climate cultism, because that's the day when they are planning an Occupy Westminster demonstration. This October, thousands of supporters of Just Stop Oil coalition will consistently block Westminster. Why? Because our dependence on oil and gas has caused the worst cost of living crisis in 40 years and is causing the climate crisis. If only life were that simple, but of course, this is probably going to be something akin to the citywide shutdowns that Extinction Rebellion did for about half a year, and which stopped happening because there were absolutely no results coming from it, apart from people being arrested and people got bored. Same thing will happen here. They get smaller every time at least. That's the good thing about this. But anyway, that's everything I had for you today. So as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.